Been there from the beginning of the fight, ending polio country by country. Vaccinating every child. Together, we are making history. Together, we will end polio.
Polio has been brought to its knees by two vaccines, one oral, the other injectable, both invented back in the 1950s. The science is not the main challenge. The scale of mass vaccination is. Keeping up a global war on polio means manufacturing vaccines for hundreds of millions of children every year.
My name is Anil Datta. I trained as a pediatrician in India. I started my life in teaching hospitals, followed that up with work in public sector hospitals, and since the last 20 years have been engaged in working for the medical and clinical teams in the industry. Having seen both sides of the eradication equation, I'm convinced that no single entity can make a disease go away. A disease goes away when every modality is brought together. We feel as humans, we feel as scientists, we feel as physicians that this disease that has caused so much damage to the world does not deserve to exist. The people who produce the vaccines, the people who run quality checks on these vaccines, who send these vaccines, the people who run logistics, sending tens or if not hundreds of millions of doses to farthest corners of the planet is not an easy task. All these people have come together to defeat an organism, just a virus. Eradication would not happen if this chain breaks. The product, the people, the funding, the implementation must happen seamlessly.
Welcome to Rotary's annual World Polio Day event, coming to you from the College of Physicians in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, featuring the host of Crime and Justice on HLN, Ashley Banfield, Alex Witt, host of MSNBC Live with Alex Witt, Rotary Foundation Trustee Chair Ron Burton, World Health Organization Surveillance Officer for Punjab, Dr. Ujala Nair, Jeffrey Kluger, Editor-at-Large, Time Magazine, Chef and author Ina Pinkney, Patience Asimwe, Rotaract member and star of Two Drops of Patience, Leah Hegg, Senior Program Officer on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's Vaccine Delivery Team, and news anchor for King 5 Television in Seattle, Mark Wright. Now, please welcome to the stage, Ashley Banfield.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the College of Physicians in Philadelphia in the United States of America. I am so excited to be working with the Rotary and also the GPEI partners, again to recognize one of the largest public health campaigns in history. I'm talking, of course, about the global effort to end polio. You're going to hear about the progress worldwide this year. We're showcasing the important role that women have played in the fight to end this devastating disease, from laboratories where the vaccine was first developed to the front lines of the global vaccination network. Women, yes, women, have been integral to the program's success. We'll also be hearing from people across the world about what it takes just to make sure that every last child is vaccinated. Now to begin, one bold step in polio eradication began right here in Philadelphia 30 years ago. And to tell us about that milestone, please welcome Chair of the Rotary Foundation Trustees, Ron Burton.
Most people probably can't point to a specific moment and say that's where polio eradication began. But I can. For me, it began in one place at one time 30 years ago at our international convention here in Philadelphia. That convention made Rotary history. Let's take a look back at that moment when we more than doubled the amount of money we had hoped to raise.
Today, 24th of May 1988 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, I can tell you that they, with a goal of $78 million, have exceeded that goal and raised $186 million. We're over goal!
I still swell with pride when I watch that, a moment that transformed our work forever. We had always known that as Rotary members, we could accomplish more together than we could alone. So we applied those principles to polio eradication, recognizing that partnerships would do more to further the effort. That was the beginning of one of the largest and most effective public-private health partnerships the world has ever seen, the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. We knew that the war against polio would be long, and it would have its challenges. But we also knew, as we do now, that we could do it. 30 years ago, I was proud to be part of the organization that took on the job and the promise of eradicating polio. And today, I'm prouder than ever to be leading our Rotary Foundation in keeping that promise. But to do it, we need your support. So please donate at rotaryendpolio.org/donate and help us make history. And remember, every dollar you give to Rotary for polio eradication will be matched 2-to-1 by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. All of us together will end this disease forever.
Thank you so much, Ron. Thank you very much, Ron. Thank you. We know that the way forward, the only way forward, is through bold action on a global scale. Rotary members around the world are hosting events to raise awareness and to raise funds for polio eradication. Case in point, in India, 2,000 members held a car rally to promote immunization. Over 500 cars and bicycles that were all adorned with informational flags and stickers drove through the city of Delhi. Polio ambassador and supermodel Isabella Fontana promoted a vaccination campaign in her home country of Brazil, and she boosted polio and measles vaccinations to rates above 95%. And in Egypt, members took over the streets of Port Said as part of the End Polio Festival, which included a road race, a blood drive, and also a concert that attracted thousands of people. And right now, at the Centers for Disease Control headquarters here in the United States of America, Rotarians are watching the live stream and recognizing the history of the GPEI. Members around the world are using their connections, they're using their imagination to inspire. Let's watch some highlights from an Italian event that attracted celebrities from all across the globe.
Gladiator live in concert at the Roman Colosseum was a night to remember because Rotary members raised $500,000 in the fight to end polio. Organized by local clubs and attended by celebrities including actress and polio ambassador Maria Grazia Cucinotta, beloved soccer player Francesco Totti, and Gladiator star Connie Nielsen. The event began with a behind-the-scenes tour of the monument, followed by dinner on the mezzanine, served by Michelin-starred chef and Italian polio ambassador Christina Baumann. Gladiator star Russell Crowe signed autographs for fans as they entered the Colosseum. Cine Concerts and the Italian Cinema Orchestra performed the original music from the film.
One committed individual can make a difference.
Tonight,
My fellow gladiators, we have raised more than $500,000.
Congratulations to all Rotarians involved for their success and inspiration to protect children everywhere from polio.
Eradicating polio means vaccinating all children, even those living in the most remote and difficult to reach locations. Now with Rotary's new virtual reality film, you too can experience exactly what it takes to inoculate children in a rural village. I want you to take a look at the VR preview featuring the work of a young volunteer vaccinator in Uganda.
Children depend on us for everything, but mostly to protect them. They are the future and far too precious to be exposed to a preventable disease. I have personally seen the devastating effects of polio, but I can't say that I've ever done anything to prevent it. That is, until now. My name is Patience. I'm not an actor or celebrity. I'm part of Rotary. And this is my story of joining a polio vaccination team, taking a challenging expedition to a remote place and saving children's lives. If you've ever wondered what it really takes to eradicate polio, join me in this immersive 360-degree film. Experience what I experienced, and who knows, maybe the next mission will be yours.
On every continent, health workers are traveling across the country to ensure that children have access to these vaccines. But there's also work to do in our cities, monitoring for poliovirus in the environment. One doctor in Pakistan, Dr. Ujala Nair, is in the field every single day. She's featured in Rotary's upcoming documentary, Drop to Zero. Let's take a look at what it takes to hunt down the virus in its very last footholds.
डॉक्टर उजाला नैयर हमारे साथ हैं WHO की विंटर हैं अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
हमने ना सीधा मुल्तान रोड पे चढ़ना है।
तो ये वो चीज़ें हैं कि अगर आपके बच्चे को बहुत तेज़ बुखार होता है और उसके साथ उसको ढीली ढाली कमज़ोरी होती है तो उसको फ़ौरन सरकारी अस्पताल में लेके जाएं।
Doctors are a major source of information. They are the one whom patients will contact.
When the polio virus attacks a child's nerve cells, the muscles in their arms or legs often wither and they become weak or limp. This is called acute flaccid paralysis, or AFP.
Doctors' knowledge about AFP and their quick response is very important.
Most of the AFP cases are referred here. So that's
from all over the Punjab.
All over the Punjab, Peshawar, Afghanistan. Yeah. Because our aim is to find out where the virus is. Okay? So we have to run after it. Sneak like dogs. Thank you, sir.
There are very few females in public health in Pakistan. Except for very few people, people don't like the presence of females. Okay? I know this thing.
नहीं बच्चे देखने टीम लगी हुई है ना इधर हमारी हाँ तो कोई बात नहीं मैं इधर देखना चाहती हूँ मैं जा सकती हूँ आ जाओ
They actually shout at us. They don't like dominating females. That's another motivating force. You want to challenge them. Okay, I'm sitting here. Now what you can do about it? So for everywhere you get good people, there are bad people. The most supportive person, again, the first one, Dr. Ubaid, who taught me. Dr. Amir, he told me surveillance. Dr. Raul, like these are the people who give you courage and who tells you that, okay, you can do it.
बात कर रही हूँ पोलियो की। दुनिया के 122 ममालिक में पोलियो का खात्मा हो चुका है। इंशाअल्लाह अगले साल हम ये ज़रूर अनाउंस करेंगे कि हम 123rd country हैं जिसमें पोलियो का खात्मा।
The gold standard for surveillance is acute flaccid paralysis surveillance. But to augment AFP surveillance, we need environmental sampling.
As the number of polio cases drops, the only way to get ahead of the disease is to find the virus before it infects children. Doctors do this by looking in the sewage system.
This site is the main outlet in Lahore. It has sewage from lots of high-risk migratory mobile population. Check kara do. Hilaएं. ठीक है. We collect once in a month, and the quality of sampling process is good. We found wild polio virus in the water in Lahore. It means that the virus is in the community. You don't know where it is. You are not having polio cases. So we need to actually hunt the virus and find if there is any infected child.
Well, that was something. Welcome to all of you again. I'm Alex Witt. I'm the host of MSNBC Live with Alex Witt on MSNBC, and it is my distinct honor and pleasure to be here with the superstar from this video you just saw. This is Dr. Ujjwala Nair. So, with a welcome to you. So many things to talk about here, but most importantly, explain this surveillance system that you have. How will you go about it, and what are the goals?
The main goal of this surveillance system is to detect wild polio virus and the last chain. We have two types of surveillance systems. One is acute flaccid paralysis, which is done in humans. Any child less than 15 years of age who is suffering from paralysis due to any illness is tested for poliovirus. The second type of surveillance, as you have seen in the video, it's environmental surveillance, and we collect monthly data from these sewage sites which have drainage UCs and which are of particular interest to us because of the high-risk migratory population or the epidemiology which is supporting polio. So these are the two things to ensure that we detect the virus so that we can respond to it. Because until and unless you know that the virus is there or not, you cannot go further. So these are the two mechanisms by which we detect the virus.
But when I think about the enormity of the community that you are looking through, you're looking through an area inhabited by 110 million people across 80,000 square miles. And it's not as if a polio virus has a red blinking light saying, I'm here, come find me. So I wonder how it is that you go about detecting it, and once you do detect it, I mean, how many different pockets are there? I mean, how overwhelming is the process?
It's a tough job. We have a network of government, private, doctors, plus informal healthcare providers, plus community mobilizers, community leaders. From all these people, they're reported AFP cases. After they report the case, we go for testing. For example, in Punjab in 2017, we had 4,547 acute flaccid paralysis cases. And all those cases were checked for poliovirus. That's a tough job to maintain the cold chain of the stool, to maintain the timeliness, to ensure the data entry. And then across all the Pakistan, every province has the same system. And we are very confident on one thing, that we are detecting every polio case, because now at this stage we are having atypical cases. Like our recent case was a child who was having a facial palsy. And we included it into our system because our AFP rate is enhanced from 2 per lakh population to 6 per lakh population. And that child does not have a residual paralysis. So it is an enormous job to ensure that every single child is taken on the line list and checked for the polio. And we are sure that we are detecting every wild polio virus from human and environment, because sometimes there are misconceptions that maybe we are hiding. If we had to hide, then how we will have so many positive environmental samples? And we are in all our metropolitan cities, Karachi, Peshawar, Quetta, Lahore. Every single city is detecting a virus, which is showing good surveillance system.
That is very positive. If you think about the positive nature of this, 122 countries, polio has been eradicated. You are very hopeful that Pakistan will be number 123 in the relatively near future. But I'm curious how you got into this, because you made a point in this film about being a woman in this environment, and that alone presents challenges for you when you're out trying to do your job.
Yes, when I joined my organization, I faced lots of challenges because they were not ready to accept me. She's young, she's inexperienced. Why you have hired her at a top level? So that thing is basically your motivation. When somebody challenges your presence, being a female, being inexperienced, being new, she cannot go in the field. Like, these type of things motivate you to work. But once now I am in the field, during this time period, for 2016, my province was polio-free for 1 year. Then we had one case, and now since more than 18 months have crossed. And it's the largest province of Pakistan. Yeah. Okay. So we have come this far from the outbreak of 306 cases in 2014. Now they're officially declared 4 cases, and environmental sites are positive. So it's tremendous progress. I know people have questions. Everybody's exhausted. They want to finish it. But every country has a different epidemiology. So we have multiple factors which are influencing and which are stopping us to eradicate. But we know that, and we are trying to overcome that. And hopefully 2019 should be the end to it.
Well, let's hope very much, as a thanks to your efforts and your colleagues in the field, the physicians with whom you work, those tremendous volunteers. Dr. Naira, thank you so much for what you're doing on behalf of all of those in Pakistan and around the world. Thank you.
I was born in a polio-endemic country where tens of thousands of children contracted the disease each year. That country was the United States. In the decades since, wild poliovirus has been largely stamped out and now clings to life in just 3 places: Nigeria, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. Although I've written about polio extensively for years, I'd never visited an endemic country. That finally changed last May when I traveled to Nigeria. I didn't know what to expect, but the idea of the visit moved me. There is a sublime human goodness in the global efforts to ensure childhood health. But there's not a lot of glamour in the work. We held our first meetings in Abuja with Dr. Tunji Funsho, a former cardiologist who could have retired by now. Instead, he went back to work as chairman of Rotary's Nigerian Polio Plus Committee. He was working late to coordinate an upcoming inoculation drive. 50 million doses of polio vaccine would be trucked, flown, biked, and walked to children across the nation. I find that kind of commitment heroic. The next morning, we drove 7 hours north to Kano. The healthcare team was scrambling to coordinate a response to a recent discovery of vaccine-derived polio in the sewage system. The work was smart, brisk, efficient. Surveillance teams went about the work of directly sampling sewage to screen for circulating virus. It's an unpleasant and unenviable business, but an indispensable one. At a community center, mothers met to learn about prenatal health and childhood vaccinations. At a mosque, men met with an imam to discuss general health and to pledge their commitment to polio eradication. At his home, the emir's representative told us how religious and political leaders were working together ignoring old suspicions and ideologies to protect babies and children. These people, who once might have fought immunization, now embraced it. Later, we visited a wheelchair factory for polio survivors. It was overseen by Aminu, who contracted polio at age 6. As an adult, he dedicated himself to making sure all polio survivors had a means of mobility. The wheelchairs he builds are known locally as tricycles. If that sounds playful, perhaps that's the point, since the freedom of movement the vehicles provide restores some of the kinetic joy of childhood. That sense of play was on even more vivid display later, when Aminu escorted us to a para-soccer match where polio survivors move about the field on modified skateboards and strike the ball with their hands. The game was fast, bruising, and by all appearances, an awful lot of fun. Most important, though, our visit took us to a ceremony in a courtyard where a newborn girl, Ramlatu Musa, was formally named. Later, she and other children received their vaccines. I was given the privilege of administering the first of several polio vaccines she will ultimately get. I did nothing special. Billions of polio vaccines have been administered over the past 6 decades, and Ramlatu was going to be vaccinated with or without me. But to have been there, to have had a literal hand in helping one child on one day, was a transformative experience. All of the people who have worked for so many years to wipe out polio are the ones responsible for a much larger transformation that will one day ensure that no child on Earth will ever be touched by polio again.
So from the conversation that I had with Dr. Nara, it was very clear that surveillance, innovation are very much at the core of the effort to eradicate polio from our planet. But it is also a global story, and getting the message out through effective advocacy, excellent communication, it's a huge part of what we can do, even from right here in Philadelphia, here in the United States. And this is a man I'm very glad to interview about that. He's an extraordinary writer, journalist. He is editor-at-large for Time Magazine, the science editor as well. He has been a champion of the World Polio Day since its inception. And the great thing is, what you saw there was the evidence of his ability to go and finally see this program in effect. It took you, what, 48, 72 hours of a whirlwind trip there to Nigeria.
Yes.
So tell me what your big takeaway from this was.
I think the big takeaway was that the way a sweeping enterprise like inoculation, we were there on a week when they were planning to distribute 50 million doses of vaccine to 50 million children across 36 states. Now, as it happened, that had to be postponed because there was some vaccine-derived polio that was circulating, so they had to put that off and do some crisis inoculation in the 3 areas that were affected. But the idea that no matter how big the enterprise becomes, it comes down to one-on-one, to a retail operation, to one hand putting 2 drops in one baby's mouth, to one field worker knocking on a door and talking to a mother and saying, I know we've been here before, I know you're tired of seeing us, but your children need 3 doses and we're here to do it again. Everything in this giant enterprise actually comes down to that single unit person dealing with another person. And that, I think, just the elegant structure of the polio organization is what struck me.
You talk about the humanity of the people that are getting out there and doing this, the sacrifice, the devotion, the passion they have for it. And we saw a little glimpse of that, and I don't mind sharing with all of you that when we were talking backstage, you were able to give a baby the very first vaccination. And you nearly teared up while talking about it. That has stayed with you. Why?
Well, I think because this is, as I said in there, I did nothing special. She was going to get vaccinated anyway. The 6 or 7 other babies I vaccinated were going to get vaccinated anyway. But nothing can change the fact that I'm a person who was born into a world in which the polio vaccine was still being proven. It was the year of the great Jonas Salk field trial. Flash forward, I won't say how many decades, but a whole lot of decades. And I am somehow, through serendipity and the random poetry of the way our lives move, I suddenly have a Nigerian baby in my arms. And the fact that we all find our ways to doing this moment of sweet goodness, I don't know, it touched me. I was thinking, we were talking backstage, I was thinking, you know, you have 1 million people walking through a train station and everyone's minding their own business, it's rush hour, but if one baby began to wail in the middle of the room because she was lost, everybody would stop, a protective scrum would gather around this child, and people would not stop until the mother or the father were found. That's just something about humanity's need, our impulse to protect babies, and to be there helping to protect a baby was very meaningful.
Which is why it's more about, when I think about your very storied career and the books that you've written about the Apollo 13 moon mission, the science behind that. You've written about Jonas Salk and the struggles, the challenges to try to put together and create the polio vaccine. But you are of the belief that it belongs to much more than the science of these things that has these magnificent opportunities and accomplishments. Is that because of the human issue?
It is because of the human issue, and it is because these things operate at 2 levels. Well, first of all, we speak about the scope of the people who are eradicating polio. The Apollo program, there were 3 men in the tip of every one of those rockets, and there were 400,000 people on the ground in the entire Apollo program. So this was a similar kind of thing. But in both cases, what you're dealing with was a complicated but manageable technology. In both cases, the virologists, the engineers said, we don't know how we're going to get there, but we're going to develop this vaccine, and we are going to develop this capacity to get to the moon. And in both cases, it's captured by a single word, a single 1-syllable verb that President Kennedy uttered in 1962 when he committed the U.S. to going to the moon. He said, we choose to go to the moon. We didn't have to. The United States wasn't facing some existential crisis if we didn't. We chose to go, and so we went. And in the same way, in 1933, when the National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis was established by President Roosevelt, his commitment, the commitment of Basil O'Connor, the head of the committee, the commitment of all of the doctors who were working there was, we choose to eradicate this disease because we are a compassionate species that will not abide our children being paralyzed.
So you believe that this is possible and that it will happen. How hopeful are you with a time frame?
Well, I don't want to say a time frame. I would like to think, I think it's safe to say that within a small handful of years, we will get to a year when we say there were 0 wild cases of polio. And when I say a small handful, I mean a small handful, in single digits, I am hopeful. And then it'll be 3 more years of surveillance until certification, and then it will be 10 more years of routine vaccination. But we will have taken something, a virus that is so small it cannot be seen with the naked eye, that can hide in any reservoirs anywhere in the world, and we will have said, we've hunted you down and we've stopped you, and you will no longer harm our babies. I mean, think about that.
It is remarkable to think about, and it's what we're doing here today. And I want to thank you for all your devotion to this, to the issue, and for being here. You're one of the many really unsung heroes by going and devoting your time to do this. There are so many unsung heroes as we look at this issue, and I now have the pleasure of introducing Ina Pinkney. Ina overcame polio as a toddler. She is an award-winning restaurateur. She's got recipes that are shared globally because they are that good. So let's welcome her, Ina Pinkney.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. On Labor Day 1944, I was 18 months old, and I couldn't stand up in my crib. My father knew that the polio epidemic that was sweeping New York City had come to Brooklyn. I couldn't do the things children are supposed to do, like skip and play and run. Hot pack treatments, surgeries, and exercises helped me pass for normal until the late effects of polio made my world much smaller. But now, polio is a completely preventable disease, and we can ensure that no child faces the same challenges that I did. This is why we must support the work of the GPEI. For 30 years, they've been committed to ending this devastating disease. And I, along with people around the world, want to say thank you.
Working for the World Health Organization here in Nigeria, I've seen how our efforts make a difference.
I work with UNICEF.
I'm very proud to be a partner.
Because of Rotary's commitment, we are on the verge of ending polio.
Working together, we can eradicate polio.
Eradicate polio.
We can eradicate polio.
We can end polio for good.
Health workers are on the front lines of immunizing children. Their commitment inspires me to continue.
Day in and day out, surveillance workers chase down the virus. They are our first line of defense.
I'm so proud of what governments have done to fight polio.
Support from countries all over the world has made progress towards eradication possible.
One polio case could become hundreds and thousands. We can't slow down. We have to keep pushing.
We cannot slow down.
We have to keep moving.
Polio eradication is building a lasting legacy.
The investments we make will fight other diseases for years to come.
We want to thank our partners, the World Health Organization.
Thank you, CDC.
세계 보건기구에 감사드립니다. Thank you, World Health Organization.
Obrigado, UNICEF.
We thank you, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Thank you, Rotary.
Thank you, Rotary. Thank you, Rotary. Thank you, GPEI partners.
GPEI, 감사합니다. Thank you, GPEI.
Since its founding, the GPEI has grown from 4 to 5 core partners. When the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation joined the cause back in 2007, they added innovation and generous funding to drive this mission forward. So far, Rotary has contributed more than $1.8 billion to the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, including $785 million in matching funds from the Gates Foundation. Let that sink in. That is remarkable. So let's get a behind-the-scenes look at the tactics and the logistics that are required to reach each and every child with Leah Hegg, Senior Program Officer with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's Vaccine Delivery Team, and also Mark Wright, news anchor with King 5 TV in Seattle, and also proud Rotary member.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Wright, immediate past president of the Rotary Club of Seattle, also news anchor for King 5 Television here in Seattle. I'm here at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation today with Leah Hegg. She's a senior program officer, and we're here really to get an update on polio. Leah, good to have you here.
Thanks.
So where do we stand in the fight against polio?
We've made tremendous progress. We used to see cases of polio paralyzing kids in almost every country in the world, hundreds of thousands of cases every year. And now we're at a point where we have just a few cases in a small area of the world. But we have to say that we're disappointed this year. None of us wanted to see cases. We're impatient, and we wanted to end polio in 2019. The fact is, in Pakistan and Afghanistan, where we're still seeing cases, we have tremendous challenges that we're facing. Conflict and insecurity. And we have to come up with new ways to solve those problems. We've got really brave polio workers going into insecure areas during periods of calm to vaccinate and then get out before they're in danger. We have vaccination at transit points outside of these areas, so when people leave, they can get vaccinated. So we still have the tools, we have the persistence, and we're still really confident that we'll get there.
The $64,000 question, of course, is what is it going to take to get us over the hump?
At a basic level, we have to reach every single child with polio vaccine. And that is rich, poor, in cities, in remote areas, girls and boys, which is the best effort at equality that we can strive for. And that takes innovation. I've been working on polio eradication for almost 8 years, and in that time, I've seen such changes in the program, it's incredible. You've got WHO and CDC and UNICEF staff coming up with new ideas, and a partnership that helps them put those ideas in place every time we have a new challenge. Rotarians, members and leaders talk to community leaders and raise funds, and get everyone around the table to solve these problems and make sure that we have the next solution whenever there's a challenge. So we do need to remain innovative, and I've seen the examples of that happening.
Some people may not know that the fight against polio has created an incredible infrastructure that's not just good for polio, right?
Right. A lot of the new ideas that have come out of polio are just ideas that can be applied to health systems and to other disease control efforts. For example, to reach every child in the community, you need a good map of that community and a good plan for how to reach those kids. And those plans and maps can be used to deliver all of the other vaccines, bed nets for malaria, to understand where people live to get them services. And the political will behind the polio eradication effort has galvanized interest in health, interest in vaccines that we can leverage for other things. And it's created partnerships around the world with donors and with other organizations like Rotary, the Gates Foundation, and our technical partners that we can use to really tackle huge problems.
Well, I know I speak for everyone in this fight when we say we're so grateful for the Gates Foundation and what you are all doing. So I'm hoping that we can sit back here in the near future to celebrate the end of polio.
Me too, and it's World Polio Day, and so it's a good time to thank you and other Rotarians everywhere for keeping up the energy in this partnership and really continuing to bring everybody around the table to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
We would like to thank you all as well for joining us today. This has been an honor and a privilege for Alex and me to share the stories of the GPEI partners and some of the female heroes in this historic campaign.
Yeah, we love that.
We do.
And as we come to the close of this evening, it's so important to remember this fight is not over yet. We are, though, very close to a future without a disease. You've heard it from Jeffrey Kluger and others. It is a disease that you have to remember used to paralyze 1,000 children a day, but now no longer.
But there are concrete things that we can all do together. Spread the word. Use the hashtag endpolio. You all have those things that have keys on them. Endpolio. Also, donate. Donate, donate, donate to ensure that all children have access to vaccinations.
You don't have to tell the Rotary members to donate. I got to tell you, they
Or
have
Bill
had
and Melinda.
extraordinary efforts thus far. But there is something to remember with regard to donating. Every dollar, it really gets maxed out because every dollar that is donated by Rotary towards polio eradication, it will be matched 2-to-1 by the Gates Foundation. And this year alone, as every year, up to $50 million a year. Extraordinary.
That's 2-to-1.
Yeah.
That's big.
That's a lot.
So give, donate, and together, everybody, we can make history. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.